Stratified sampling is a sampling method we use when we have different categories and we want to pick proportionally from the categories to create a sample. For example, each of the 250 Year 10 pupils in Ysgol Blaengarw study one foreign language at GCSE. The table shows how many pupils chose to study French, German and Spanish. Languages department is planning to take a group of 30 pupils on a trip to Europe. So they basically want a sample of 30 pupils. And we are to use a stratified sampling method to calculate the number of Year 10 pupils from each language group that should be taken. To do this, I'm going to use the formula here. Group size divided by population size multiplied by sample size gives us the number of people from each group in the sample. We can use this to work out how many students from each language group ought to go on the trip, or how many pupils from each language group should be in the sample of 30. So for French, I'm going to do 75 out of 250. That's just the fraction of pupils to study French. And I take that fraction and multiply it by 30, which is the desired sample size. And I'm going to use my calculator to do this. So I have 75 divided by 250. And I do my answer multiplied by 30. This gives me 9. So that means we could have 9, or we should have 9 students of French in the sample. For German, we have a group size of 55 out of a population size of 250 multiplied by a sample size of 30. And this will give me 55 out of 250 multiplied by 30. Now this gives me a decimal, but that's fine for now. We'll deal with that in a minute. That gives me 6.6. And then for Spanish, we have 120 divided by 250 multiplied by 30, and that gives me 14.4. The decimals I'm going to deal with by rounding. So 6.6, logically you'd round up to 7, 14.4, logically you'd round down to 14. But I need to check that I actually have 30 people in the sample. 9 plus 7 plus 14 is going to be 16 plus 14, which is 30. So because I have 30 people in the sample, I'm going to leave 9, 7 and 14 as my final answer. Here's a question for you to try. Please pause the video now and have a go at it, and when you're ready for the answers, press play. So to work this out, we're 640 staff. We want a sample of 75. So to work out how many doctors ought to be in the sample, I need to do 120 out of 640 multiplied by 75. Which will give me 14.0625, and I'll leave it like that until I've calculated all of them. For the nurses, we should have 320 out of 640 times 75. This will give me 37.5. Management, 56 out of 640 times 75. 6.5625. And clerical, 144 out of 640 multiplied by 75, and that gives me 16.875. So let's see what we can get. So we have, if I round all of these to the nearest whole number, 14, 38, 7 and 17. Now we need to make sure that these add up to 75, so let's do that. They actually add up to 76. So what I'm going to do is alter one of these values. I'm going to change the one that we had to round the most. And it looks to me like that was 37.5. That's the one that's been changed the most, to go from 37.5 to 38. So I'm just going to change this to 37. And now when I add up my values, it should be fine. Yep, I now get 75 people So I'm going to leave that. I'm going to have my answer as 14 doctors, 37 nurses, 7 management, and 17 clerical staff. And that will be my answer.